Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and I'm here with comic Steven Rogers. Steven Rogers, how the hell are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, good. How's the last time I saw you? I think you were on TV.
Oh, wow. It's been a while.
So what was that like? You were on the Colbert Show?
Yeah, the Late Show.
Okay. And what was that like? Just nerve-wracking as hell.
Yeah, it was a dream come true. It was amazing. Loved it, and a little nervous, but incredible. It was fantastic.
Is there like a couch that you could even get invited over to? I imagine that didn't happen. It was your first time?
That did not happen.
Okay. Does that happen anymore?
I don't think it happens with Colbert.
Okay.
I think it might happen like Jimmy Fallon does it on The Tonight Show, and maybe Conan does it, but Colbert does not.
And Fallon will giggle during your set.
Exactly,
until You're like,
yeah.
I'm going to get invited over. And they're like, nah, he just giggles, let him out. You know?
Yeah, Colbert just watches like a stern father.
Does he? I haven't watched in a while. Does he even have the beard still?
He did not when I was on.
Okay.
So I don't think he has it right now.
Okay. And so that has not. That was a little while ago, and since then you've been touring with, was it Regan?
Yeah, I opened for Brian Regan,
Okay.
and
is he still doing the OCD bit?
Yes, that's a pretty new bit.
Yeah, I saw it on TV, and I have OCD.
Okay.
And so as somebody who has it, it was the way his kind of comedy hook was, yeah, I have OCD, but people don't suffer from OCD.
Right.
OCD. If you're suffering, you're writhing on the ground, etc. But
Right.
It's like somebody with OCD. I mean, it's still kind of a serious thing, and it probably ultimately got funny. But I never really say I'm suffering from OCD.
Right.
So it kind of gave him license to minimize it a little bit, although I'm sure it was hilarious. But
Right.
so I actually turned it off.
Oh,
but
okay.
And so kind of but I hear he's one of the best. What was kind of going on tour with him like?
He's amazing, and he's fantastic. He's just an incredible comic to work with, and even that bit, I recommend you
See the
give it a
Yeah.
shot, because
He got there.
he's not minimizing it.
Right.
He just says he doesn't feel comfortable calling it suffering.
Yeah.
Because he saves it for people in physical pain.
Right.
But he is affected greatly by his OCD.
And so he kind of goes on
he
kind of stress the seriousness of it,
Yes,
despite just using the word suffering as kind of a convenient
Yeah.
comedy hook or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
the one thing I love about Brian is he doesn't make anyone a victim in his act.
Okay.
He does not. He's an incredible performer and a great writer.
And kind of how did you see his audiences reacting to your stuff? Kind of in comparison with how, I don't know, like a room full of your fans would. Do you kind of share the same fan base, would you think, and
Yeah,
why?
thankfully so far they like me enough. We're a good enough pairing. So I've been able to get a good amount of my fans from opening for him.
Oh, good.
Which has been very nice. They're great fans. They're good people.
And kind of the rule for kind of opening or whatever is make sure you don't do a lot of crowd work, so you're doing a lot of material. Is that right?
Well, it's hard in a theater to do crowd work.
Okay, it was
anyways.
a big theater show.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're big theaters, and it's hard to do crowd work when you can't really see more than 5 rows back.
Oh, okay, and he's good at that kind of stuff normally. Like he just
He's fantastic.
rules the clubs because he could just
Yeah,
go
I mean,
up there and own it.
he used to sell clubs out for 2 weeks at a time, so he had to start doing theaters. He's just one of the best. He's on my Mount Rushmore. He's fantastic.
Do you think it sucks for him that he's so big that he can no longer kind of do that, or do you think he still kind of does pop in shows for clubs and to kind of tweak any jokes?
I think from my experience, he does all of his work in a theater, and it's fantastic to be in a theater because the people there want to be there. They know who the headliner is. They're all there for him.
So they know that the OCD bit is going to go somewhere with perfect sincerity.
They trust the
They
guy,
trust him, yeah.
because they know the guy delivers, and he consistently does.
And is there kind of anything you had to take out of your act as a result, knowing that his fans are, they don't like people who take cheap shots? I mean, is there? I mean, you don't either,
right?
But I suppose coming up, there must have been a joke or two where you were like, this was a little too easy. Maybe there's a victim somewhere in the universe of this joke, so let me leave it out of the act when opening for Regan.
Thankfully I'm also clean.
Good.
He's clean, so I maybe had to make some adjustments, but not major ones because I don't really swear in any joke. I don't have any sex jokes.
Okay.
So thankfully, and he knew that more than I did. He knows what he wants in front of him. So
Oh yeah, he wouldn't have picked you.
he wouldn't have picked someone that couldn't do it.
Yeah, if you had to overhaul your act, because I imagine that would have been difficult your first theater show. Wait, maybe it wasn't.
He was my first theater
okay,
show.
One
Yeah.
of your first theater shows, or your first theater show, to have to overhaul an act. Because like Orny Adams, that comedian documentary,
Yes.
he had to change some words, and he was really thrown off by having to do that on the Letterman show.
Right.
And it was just so funny to see him agonize over, I couldn't say lupus, I had to say psoriasis,
Right.
Psoriasis.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, back to we'll kind of segue into what we wanted to do, and the way to do that is kind of, is there anybody else on your comedy Mount Rushmore that you feel comfortable outing at this time, knowing that going along you will have, you're going to be able to tour with Maniscalco and Jerry Seinfeld, and you're like, I really wish I had left a spot open. Let's say there's 10 people on your Mount Rushmore. Who are some other comics that you look up to?
I loved growing up. I loved Ellen DeGeneres' two HBO specials she had.
Did you like the recent one?
The recent one was good.
Yeah, I was like, how can she become? It was called Relatable.
Yeah.
How can she become relatable? And in the first couple seconds, she let us know that she's no longer the same person, and it's fine if you can poke fun at it.
Yeah, she does a great job. The two HBO specials have more significance to me because I was I was growing up and knew I liked stand up, didn't know if I wanted to do it, and any hard time I had, I could turn her on. I could just find it, and it would cheer me up. If I was at 0, she would take me to 100.
Wow,
she's fantastic.
And it's her kind of fumbling style. How do you contrast that with your own stand-up style? Do you do any of that, or do you do all that? Or for somebody who hasn't seen you, is there any of her delivery that you've incorporated into your act?
Well, she's one thing. I know this sounds silly, but she's a joke teller. Not everyone now in stand-up is. There's a lot of different types of stand-up now.
There's like stylists or
there's
whatever.
Very many styles, and she was just punch, 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 punch. And misdirection is a big thing with her, and it also is very, she curses a little bit in some jokes, but it has significance.
Okay.
So one thing, it was like everything that in her jokes was needed to be there. Everything was necessary, and I think that's a little bit of me. Also, she's very adorable in some of her naivete. She will do fake naivete, which I love. And
we only now know it's fake, but back in the day, we were like, she's just a new comic. She's naive, right? No, she's not. She's a killer, right?
Yeah, she had this great joke about she saw this place, Pleasure Chest, and she thought it was a toy store. And it's just so funny to me. So she's a big one for me. Also, Gary Shandling is a huge. Unfortunately, I'll never get to open for him, but he's on my Mount Rushmore. And
did I see a picture with Gary Goldman too?
Yes,
Gary Goldman recently. What have you done with him?
I got lucky enough to open for him in Buffalo, and for a weekend, and he's just fantastic. It was really fun to watch and to be a part of that.
And so after doing with the Great Depression, that special, does he still do that material like in Buffalo, or does he? Is he kind of, do you tour with the same material after you do a special that's pretty prominent and everybody will know the jokes? Or
one thing is Gary's a mastermind. So when I worked with him, he might say differently, but I'm pretty positive. I worked with him before he taped the special.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe a year or so before.
Oh, so you're still tweaking the material?
Well, I didn't see any of those jokes because Gary, at the time, Gary told me he had 2 hours that he was playing with. So I'm pretty sure I saw maybe at least 75% of jokes that no one's seen yet.
Oh no!
Which are also really, really good.
That's cool. And so he subsequently wrote jokes that made its way into the A material that was a special. So now you can still kind of tour with some of those.
Yeah,
they're almost like B-sides or outtakes,
right?
So Kid A or whatever from Radiohead can come out with an Amnesiac and be like, we did them at the same time.
Yeah,
and so they're pretty cohesive or whatever.
Yeah,
okay. And so we talked about Mount Rushmore, and what we were going to talk about today is maybe a couple other entertainment fields, acting and music, that have some Mount Rushmore-like entertainers, and they were James Spader and Alice Cooper.
Yes.
So somehow we found some common ground on the man, they're all over the map as far as what they do. But I think they've been successful. James Spader, the Blacklist. He was on The Office pretty memorably as Robert California, but also back in the day, Baby Boom. What else? Huge ones. Boston Legal.
That's my
Boston Legal
big
is
one.
yours. Okay, well, him and Shatner.
Him and Shatner. Also Blacklist.
Oh yeah,
and he is just fantastic. His charisma, like very charismatic. Maybe the most charismatic actor I've ever watched.
Yeah.
He could deliver any line and make it sound just fancier than it was written.
Yeah.
He's so incredible.
He used to speechify a little bit, so for people who don't know, Boston Legal is this big legal drama where he would get up and give these closing arguments. And as a retired lawyer myself, I can tell you I've never done that, but I had done, argument contests in law school, etc. And you can really be passionate about something, but you have to stay a little bit courtroom formal.
Right.
And he kept doing that. Now, my question to you, is there any, and I guess Gulman does a little bit of that too, where he can talk about Trader Joe's, he can talk about the states and make it seem like almost poetic,
right,
or Shakespearean.
Yes.
Is there any of that? Is there any kind of what joke runs, or when you have a joke roll, or is there any bits with collections of jokes where you try to almost make it a fancy speech about something a little bit more mundane?
Not me.
Okay. Or just anything in your act where you think you turned a poetic turn of phrase, or you probably aim to be charismatic. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just the Ellen DeGeneres. You try to be the everyman.
I try to be. Ray Romano's another one on my Rushmore. Most of my Rushmore people are quick jokes, and very not charismatic. I think it's hard for me to be charismatic, because I'd say 99% of my material is at my expense or showing my humanness.
Okay. Your humanity.
Yeah,
and I suppose that's like, who else was like that? But yeah, so kind of it's almost charisma would be the opposite of your persona at this point.
Like
if you came out with it, your fans would be like, "What? I hope this is going to his naive humanity pretty soon."
I would say I would say if I'm at all charming, it is accidental when it comes to stand up.
It's more, he's so charming because he's the bumbling detective. He stumbled onto something.
100% himself.
Right.
He's him. Now, I remember when Boston Legal was coming out, I remember exactly the years, but it was around the Bush administration.
Yeah.
When that show was going on, I remember wanting to be Alan Shore, which was James Spader's character, because he was so charismatic, he was so smooth.
Yeah.
I think I wanted him to be him off stage.
Yeah.
Which is not me. I'm not that guy. Like, he was so intelligent and everything. He's just and nothing about him is macho or anything like that.
Yeah. How to stay charismatic without being macho.
Yes.
Right.
And I loved that. And one thing I loved about him is he, as a guy that loves comedy, he would use the courtroom as a stage and would be hilarious.
Yeah.
He was always hilarious. He was always a smartass. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so I guess you'll have to save any, kind of unexpected theatrics for something like a podcast or any charisma, anything, but really as an everyman, people will love you. And then when you drop the insight, you're like, oh, here's the insight into anxiety or something like that.
Yeah.
People are like, wow, I believe it coming from him.
Right.
Whereas if Alan Shore got on stage and he started talking about anxiety or whatever, you'd be like, I don't fucking believe you.
Right.
But just, him and Shatner is like the bromance of all time. Did you find yourself loving Shatner too?
I love Shatner.
Right.
That's what I think. One thing I liked about them is they were telling jokes, but they weren't like it was all in context. It wasn't. It was just perfect for them, but they didn't know they were funny. Almost. Yeah. Well, Shatner character didn't, but
because it's kind of oblivious or whatever.
Yeah, Shore was just constantly sarcastic and a smartass, so I think he knew that he was. But my parents loved the show as well, and I remember just those. If you've never seen the show, they would almost end every episode with them sitting on the balcony, smoking cigars and drinking, and they would just have these talks. And though that's the closest I get to Alan, is if I'm sitting with somebody talking about comedy with them at the end of the night, That's
Yeah.
that's the closest I get to Alan.
Yeah, so I think you've pretty much stumbled upon that without
Yeah.
going to law school.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like the most expensive lesson. I mean, you learned it. You know, I learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to kind of talk your trade with people who are equally experienced and just even sometimes Alan Shore would try to crack a joke or whatever without realizing that, man, oh my gosh, I just stepped onto one of Denny Crane's, who's William Shatner's soft points.
Yeah.
I was talking about have you gone crazy? And then William Shatner will look at him because he also is kind of going through Alzheimer's or whatever. And so it's the ultimate friend thing. And so them at the end of the night, I almost think that maybe you with your comic running mates will get that kind of trade. I wonder if you'll ever achieve that level of friendship because it's such a transient. You don't go back to the same balcony at the end of the night. You kind of are at a different balcony every night, and so you have these moments with many comics and on many balconies.
That's what's happened.
Right.
Brian has been one of those people, and I've got a lot of friends in New York. So sometimes the balcony changes, and the person in the other chair changes. But anyone that's in that, using this illusion, anyone that's in that other chair is my Denny Crane that night.
Yeah, and it's almost like because you almost don't need a Denny Crane who works at the same law firm because their experience was so particular to a certain case or whatever, whereas here you guys are going up against the general audience every single night, having to control them while entertaining them.
Yeah.
I mean, usually you can entertain them, but sometimes, stuff just doesn't go to plan.
Yeah, I think that's what I fell in love with is if you can end I'm more in love with it now having a career that doing what I love and going against some odds, like a whole room trying to win a room's love. If you can end your night sitting next to someone that completely understands you and you don't have to put any guards up, and that's how your night ends, that's a fantastic night.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic day.
Yeah, let's hope everyone ends like that. Now, real quick, we'll talk about Alice Cooper really quickly. Now, what about Alice Cooper do you think appeals to you? And is it the same thing or a different thing that appeals to you than like a James Spader? Because he's charismatic. He kind of owns the stage. Yes. He came out recently. My mom turned me on to Jesus Christ Superstar. He did the live television thing. Kind of what is your love for Alice Cooper?
Well, Alice is a deep-rooted one. I was named after a song of his called Stephen, and my dad took me to my first concert. It was Alice Cooper.
Wow, that's a good dad.
Yeah, my dad's been very helpful with the music. I love a lot of his favorite stuff, and it's because I love it, not because he does. He's the Denny Crane of my music choice. Yeah, I saw Alice, and I saw the dedication of a performer. Alice was an alcoholic, and he, got rid of that too, and he does whatever he can to put on this show. He's a dedicated performer. He's in his 70s, and he's killing it still. Yeah. I've seen him like 13 or 14 times.
Wow, even recently.
Yeah, I saw him in 2019. I'll keep seeing him.
And his movement and his voice is still kind of where it should be?
Yeah, and he was the first one that looked at rock and said there's too many Peter Pans and there's no Captain Hooks. So he was the first villain of rock, and also it's comedic. It's funny how he's a bad guy and the bad guy loses in the end. It's a entertainment and great music. It's a show. He puts on a show.
And that's one of the things, like there's a Hired Guns documentary that, all these session players would talk about working with Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
And how when they had to go, I have to go start this Avenged Sevenfold band or whatever, he's like, dude, that's your opportunity. You did a great job for me. See if you can find me another great session player to play with me. And all of them just said he was totally professional.
Yeah.
And so is there any of that? Is there any... and we'll end soon just because I know I've kept you too long on that,
No, you're fine.
It's just hilarious James Spader and Brian Regan stories. But is there something from being a heel, the wrestling heel or the Captain Hook, as you say, or him being professional to his session players that you can incorporate into your act or to your profession? Like, is there something about having other comics with you, like when you get to the point that Brian Regan's at,
right,
and you are able to put other comics in the position that he's put you in now? Is there anything about Alice Cooper's being totally professional with the best players ever that you could incorporate? And if not that, is there any heel? Is there any Captain Hook that you could put in your bumbling, naive humanity act? Probably not, but
Probably,
maybe that's phase 2.
Yeah.
I mean, like the first 10 years,
Right.
Steven Rogers would just be Steven Rogers.
Right.
But at year 10, is there anything that you see you can branch out?
Well, I definitely I do think it's a possibility. I don't think I could go full Captain Hook.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm not smart enough to be the captain of a ship of to be full captain. I could maybe be Smee. I could probably be Smee. I'm a good Smee.
Right.
But as far as like Brian is very similar to Alice. And one thing I love is they're very, like, I don't love this about them, but they're very underrated. But they're full professionals, and they do everything they can, and they take care of their people.
Okay.
And they love the people that work for them, and so there is a little bit of that. If I'm ever that lucky to have people open for me in either clubs or theaters, I will want to take care of them. I'll want them to know, hey, this is a great experience, and I appreciate what you do. So I've learned a lot from those two,
Right.
From the outside and the inside. Take care of your people because it puts on a better show.
Yeah.
And then they won't forget that when they leave.
Yeah.
And they chase their own thing, and they pay it forward.
Yeah. And so here we have me starting with Brian Regan, just being like,
Yeah.
that hook was a little bit, me as an OCD person didn't like the hook of being of using the word
Yeah.
suffering, and then you're here leaping to his defense, and
Oh,
hopefully, yeah. And,
I'll jump in front of any bullet for Brian.
And part of
as
that,
long as I live.
part of that was probably not only because he's on the Mount Rushmore, as Alice Cooper probably is for you when it
Yeah.
comes to singing, musical entertainment, but Brian Regan is, and also that experience of him treating you correctly. Because I would think, like, maybe if you were on your Mount Rushmore of comic, which he is, or he's on somewhere in your Mount Rushmore, is there anything that he could have done unprofessionally that would have made you less, yeah, because there's probably, even if, you toured with Ellen DeGeneres and she was just totally awful to you.
Right.
Would you be leaping to her defense on a podcast? I don't
Right.
know. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So, like, if you really want to convert people to be true believers, you not only need to have a great act,
Yeah.
but you need to treat people consistent with that. And there's some of that, even some of the Bill Burr stuff that's going on. Like, there's now podcasts that will analyze the body language, and his podcast when he's on Theo Vaughn, when he's on this other Ethan something or other, and there was actually, like, Theo Vaughn released a clip of them kind of talking about their experience interviewing Bill Burr, and it's just like, that's kind of who he is. Like, he'll find the funny regardless, but also just like he didn't expect you to be so sensitive.
Yeah.
But so some of that is like, if he would treat you kind of just as a man and not be sensitive with kid gloves, would you like him as much? But if it's consistent with your act, like Bill Burr, and I guess that's consistent with Brian Regan's act, because like he said, there's no victims in his joke.
There's
anyway.
no victims, and that's the thing. I've been opening for him for about 3 years. Like, there's people on my Mount Rushmore that I've never met, but this is 3 years of knowing this guy personally, and it's not changed. If anything, he's gone further up on my list of people I want to be like.
Yeah, I think there's a double decker of Mount Rushmore. So on top of those 4 people, there's 3, and then there's 2. It's like a pyramid. It's like a cheerleading pyramid.
Oh, for sure.
Of Mount Rushmores, and Regan's somewhere near the top.
Yeah.
Well, you turned me into a believer. Thank you so much, Stephen
Rogers,
for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're my pleasure.